Hey book nerds, I'm Travis and this is Travis Reads Books. Today I'm doing the 7 things that bug you in novels tag. I was tagged by Jason Greensides in his excellent and hilarious video where he lists the 7 things that bug him. So I'm going to list for you the 7 things that bug me, and I read and write predominantly young adult. So these are going to be sort of skewed towards YA books, but I think they apply to pretty much all novels. So, 7 things that bug me in novels. Number 1, Insta-love. Insta-love is like the bane of my existence. I absolutely loathe any book that has Insta-love in it, even if it is otherwise a good book. If I'm reading reviews and someone mentions Insta-love, then I will probably never even pick up that book because I hate it that much. It is just such a lazy writing technique to throw characters together and have them fall in love instantly. That isn't how love works, that isn't how people work, and that isn't how books should work if you're a talented writer, or are putting any sort of effort into your writing. Number 2, adverbs. I mentioned this in another video earlier. I really hate adverbs, which are 90% of the time completely unnecessary. When you're dealing with an action, either through common sense or contextual clues, you can figure out the details of that action without any unnecessary adverbs. Examples of what I'm talking about are the character ran quickly. Yes, that's how you run. If you were running slowly, you would be walking. You can only run quickly, so you don't need that adverb in there to tell you. Or perhaps jumping up and down excitedly, as opposed to jumping up and down in a manner suggesting boredom. If you're jumping up and down, it's a safe bet you're excited about something, so you probably don't need that adverb. Number 3, magical Negroes and noble savages. This is a technique that's been used in writing for so long, and it's amazing that it still carries on today, but I think a lot of writers who want to throw in some diversity for diversity's sake sometimes add a diverse character, and they don't have to be black or indigenous. I think this applies to having the token gay best friend or the token trans character that has no effect on the plot but is mentioned 3 times, that sort of thing. And I think this is the absolute worst way to put diversity into books, and it is a technique that absolutely should be avoided at all costs. Number 4, impossible dialogue tags. As a writer, dialogue tags are something I struggle with constantly, and there's temptation to try to add interesting words to mix it up so you're not always saying this character said and that character said, and this character says this. But unfortunately, a lot of times, what writers put in makes no sense. For instance, I really hate you, growled the character. He growled? Like an animal? Like he growled like a dog? If that happened, why aren't people reacting to that? That's a weird thing for someone to do in the middle of a conversation, even if he's angry. Or, I despise your choice in films, spat this character. Like, they spat? They literally just spit on the other character because they didn't like their choice in films? Like, that's not what happened. It's ridiculous hyperbole, and it's completely unnecessary. The word said is almost invisible to readers, so there's nothing wrong with overusing it because as you're reading it, your mind sort of ignores it and just concentrates on the dialogue. So it's not something we really need to worry about as writers too much. So we certainly shouldn't be putting in weird random speech verbs that make no sense. Number 5, strong female characters who completely fall apart when they meet a boy. I absolutely hate this, and it is such a trope of YA writing. I understand that YA typically has a lot of romance in it, and this probably bothers me more than Insta-love even. I can think of one book in particular I read recently, and I won't name it because I don't like to bash books unnecessarily. But the book had this female character who was strong and intelligent and interesting, and stood up for what she believed in. She was genetically enhanced to be the perfect physical specimen. She was just the epitome of a powerful female character. And then the second a boy enters the picture, she completely falls apart. She loses all of her strength, all of her intelligence. All she talks about is this boy she can't stop thinking about. All she cares about is seeing the boy again. It's just such a waste of a character that was interesting and I wanted to read about, and now I just don't care. Number 6, stories with no endings. Cliffhangers are fine. Well, I mean, they're not fine. I actually hate them. But, I mean, they're a legitimate way to end a book if you do it right. But just cutting off your story halfway through is not a proper ending, even if you want to call it a cliffhanger. A story has to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And even if there's an overarching plot, each book has to have a self-contained beginning, middle, and end. And nothing is worse than having a book just randomly end. Number 7, Unpronounceable Names. This drives me crazy, and as much as I love Sarah J. Maas, she is probably the worst offender out there for it. When you're naming your characters, there is not a rule that says you have to come up with a name that has never been used before. In fact, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Even if you're writing fantasy or science fiction, maybe if you're making up aliens, I suppose some allowance should be given for creating aliens whose names would be in another language. But just giving your characters plain names is okay. And if you have to publish a pronunciation guide, which Sarah J. Maas actually does, then maybe you're making your names a little too complex. Well, that was my 7 things that bug me about novels. Thanks to Jason Greensides for tagging me. If you liked the video, be sure and give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, give it a thumbs down. If you haven't subscribed yet, be sure and subscribe so you don't miss any fun tags coming up or other videos I'll be doing in the future. Thanks for watching. Love and respect. See you next time.